The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
Now, Mark, I really needed your head to rotate 360 degrees during the course of that intro to sell the gimmick, but...
Before this goes any further, I don't have pea soup. I do have, my beer, but we are joined from the Pleasure Parish, ladies and gentlemen, Father Freaky himself, Dorian Price, back on the show again. How do you do, sir?
Not too bad. How are we all feeling today?
Well, I was feeling okay, then I saw the movie, and, that's kind of left a pretty serious cloud hanging over my head.
Yeah, speaking of vomiting pea soup, tonight we are reviewing The Exorcist Believer. And The Exorcist Believer...
almost as bad as the Imagine Dragons song.
...is a 2023 American supernatural horror film directed by horror's greatest monster of the modern filmmaking era, David Gordon Green.
Hang on. I'm trying to see if I'm going to disagree with that sentiment, and I'm not sure I am. I'm not sure I am.
10 years ago, it would have been Uwe Boll. But yeah, 10 years ago, it would have been Uwe Boll, but
true.
Yeah. Good David.
The less about Uwe Boll, the better.
David, rah, we're an angry mob. Rah, my name is Bob Gordon Green. I'm never letting that go, by the way.
No, you're not.
Real quick, Damien, go after this. I need you to do two things. I need you to do like a kind of like a film like marathon fest. Like grab your partner, spin her around, do-si-do, and sit her down and watch Halloween Kills, but then also watch the last My Little Pony movie from Netflix.
Like,
and you'll understand. Yeah, and you'll understand that these movies are like intimately connected.
So Mark wound up seeing them very close to each other, and because Halloween Kills features protracted sequences of mob activity, he latched onto a song from that particular MLP movie for the back half of Halloween Kills.
And for the back half of 2022.
The possession storyline and the devil storyline is already getting to Mark, because for those of you who are listening, he just called me Damien and not Dorian.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
I'm sorry, Steve. Anyway.
No problem, bro.
Who co-wrote the screenplay with Peter Sattler from a story by Scott Teems, Danny McBride, and Green. The sixth installment in the Exorcist franchise. It serves as a sequel to The Exorcist 1973. The film stars Leslie Odom Jr., Lidya Jewett, Olivia O Neill in her film debut, Jennifer Nettles, Norbert, Nelly, Leo Butz, and Ann Dowd alongside Ellen Bernstein and Linda Blair, reprising their roles.
Wait. Did you just call Ellen Burstyn Ellen Bernstein?
I did, because I wanted to do that little musical bit. Reprising their roles from the original film. Its plot, if you can call it that, follows a photographer who must confront the nadir of evil when his daughter and her best friend are possessed. All right. I have never seen The Exorcist. If you guys start like bullying me and shoving me into a locker because I didn't see the horror film, the greatest horror film of all time, leave me alone. Occasionally,
it's up there.
occasionally the puck gets past me, and that's just not one I saw as a kid and then didn't find a reason to see it as an adult. And then this movie came out, and in the pre-social era, we were going to do an on-trial of it, but I ain't got that kind of time anymore. So no, I have never seen The Exorcist. But Damien, Dorian, David, Daffodil, you, however, have an intimate familiarity with the Exorcist franchise, yes?
Yes, all three. Well, and then this one, so all four.
Okay. So what'd you think?
I appreciate you disavowing certain of them.
So tell me about how you came to The Exorcist, your thoughts on it, because I think this movie in particular, an understanding of the original Exorcist movie and at least the third sequel, you can go into it like I did cold and just appreciate it for what it is. But I think also comparing it to the original, there's a discussion to be had. So let's get some context here.
Yeah. So The Exorcist comes out originally in 1973, based off of the William Peter Blatty book of the same name. Blatty actually did help out on the screenplay with obviously director William Friedkin. Just some behind the scenes notes before I get into like the context of it. This movie is the first horror film ever to get close to winning Best Picture.
Probably should have.
It did get the nod for Best Picture in that next year's Oscars. Sadly did not win.
If memory serves, The Sting won that year, did it not?
I think so, yeah. And there were actually a lot of people that were upset because, especially of like the younger generation, who horror films still to this day are very much pointed at. So again, had I been alive, that would have been my generation.
Was there a fat nerd screaming into the void, make a populist choice for The Exorcist?
Not so much a fat nerd screaming. It was a bunch of like teenagers and young adults going, of course, the old person movie won. I mean, come on, guys.
Of course, the movie with Paul Newman, Robert Redford, and Robert Shaw won.
Right. Those
appropriately
hacks.
So.
I mean, to be fair, like The Sting's a perfectly good movie. I rather enjoy it, but my vote would have been for The Exorcist, for the record.
Okay. Why don't you cry about it on Twitter?
The movie does really well. With audiences. Again, a lot of people were taken out very scared. There was a whole newspaper or news coverage of people saying it was horrible. Evangelist Billy Graham has my favorite quote on the original Exorcist movie, and that is, "The celluloid it was filmed on was possessed by the devil."
Okay, we're done. I'm good. I have all I needed to hear tonight.
Go home. Good night, folks.
You know what? Here we go. That is amazing.
Sadly, the story doesn't end there. Several years later, I want to say 6, but don't quote me. Oh God, I'm gonna forget the director's name. He did Zardoz. Yeah. So anyway.
I will look it up because I know who you're talking about, but the name escapes me. I'll find it. Keep going.
Gotcha. So we get Exorcist 2, The Heretic. This movie fails on so many levels.
John Boorman.
John Boorman, yeah.
I've been listening. I was telling Robert this earlier. I listened to the critically acclaimed guys review The Exorcist Believer. If you don't know who they are, people watching, we have a live audience. It's a podcast. Two movie reviewers of some renown, Whitney Seibold and William Bibiani. They write for Slash Fiction and The Wrap, and Whitney Seibold has actually been on my show because I'm a celebrity. Anyway, and they were talking about how, like, people like 1, people like 3, and 2 is like an acid-induced fever dream from another dimension. It is like one of these things is not like the other. One of these things is dead. Like, it is so bizarre.
One of these things should never have been made.
Very true.
But yeah, so second movie is basically the biggest problem fans of the Exorcist series have with the second one is it basically undoes everything we fought so hard for in the first one. Because spoiler alert, at the very end, Max von Sydow's priest is killed in a fight with the demon, which it's off screen. And then Father Karras comes in. He's the younger priest. He's been struggling with his faith the entire movie. He gets into a one-on-one with the demon, going so far as, because you have to remember, this is like an 8-9-year-old girl that's been possessed by this demon.
Mm-hmm.
They start actually grappling, physically grappling. He pulls her out of bed and starts punching her in the face in the original movie, in the one everyone loves.
Right.
Ends up getting the demon into him, throws himself out the window onto the very iconic set of stairs that I think we've all seen. Even if you haven't seen The Exorcist, you know what the stairs look like.
Right.
So the second movie is basically, well, Pazuzu's still in there. We didn't do the job right. Or there's like it's not very focused on how this is happening. It's either like a memory or there's like emotional or spiritual scars that there is a Pazuzu's Reagan.
Somehow Pazuzu returned. Dark Secrets of the Sith.
Right. Exorcist 2 Heretic. Yeah, Exorcist 2 Heretic coming this fall in Clone Wars Season 20. So the movie bombs very hard. And although there are good points of it, you get to see James Earl Jones in a gigantic locust costume.
Yay.
Don't buy the movie. Don't watch it. Just get on YouTube and put on Exorcist 2, James Earl Jones. You don't have to type further than that. It'll know what you're talking about. You can see the scene and go home.
Okay. So if I go to a Halloween party this year, I'm going as James Earl Jones in the locust costume, but also in blackface.
Saying you're going as James Earl Jones was enough, Mark.
So obviously, that movie bombs hard. However, William Peter Blatty had technically written a sequel book to The Exorcist, which mentions the events of the first book. However, serves more as, I would say, a spiritual sequel. It's in the same universe, but we're not, we're not hanging out with Reagan
characters.
Yeah, the only character that returns from the first movie is our detective, this time played by General Patton himself.
Oh, okay.
And not the actual General Patton, but
no, we're with you, buddy.
No, that's just for the audience who are like, General Patton would be.
He went into acting, did he?
Revisionist history here on Damn You Hollywood. But no, it's more of a supernatural murder mystery. Standout performances obviously are a very young Brad Dourif, who other horror fans will know obviously as the man behind Chucky, the voice of Chucky. He plays the Gemini killer, who is a character that our detective had killed in battle years ago while hunting him during his serial killer reign, and now this body is back and it's possessed. William Peter Blatty, the author of The Exorcist, actually steps into the director's chair on this one. It is a good watch. Get the director's cut. It's a little longer, but it's a lot of fun.
Exorcist 3 has one of the 5 best jump scares in cinema history.
Which, I don't want to spoil for anyone who hasn't seen, because it's worth seeing the first time.
It's great.
I'm sorry?
It's a great jump scare.
Oh, yeah.
My understanding of The Exorcist is this is yet another example, and this is sort of a teachable moment in film. Your movie can have stuff in it. Your stuff couldn't be sort of the centerpiece of it. It's right there, right in the middle of the table for everyone to sort of, appreciate and love and admire, but it's not what it's about. It's in the case of The Exorcist, as I've been made to understand it, and I wanted your guys to weigh in on this. It is about family. It's about the relationship between this mother and daughter. It is about the mother trying to save this daughter and sort of the inherent, I don't know if hysteria is the right word, but the fear of what is wrong with my daughter, and all just wanting as a parent to do what you can for your child. There is a possession in the movie. It is the centerpiece, but it is not what The Exorcist is really about. And I make that point because the problem with a lot of modern movies relating to The Exorcist Believer and also The Exorcist is that they think that the centerpiece is what the movie is about. And what you end up is a very shallow, sort of vapid representation of a beloved classic. And it goes to a very common thing that we talk about on the show all the time. People don't know why something is popular. They just know that it is. And so they just make the thing that they think is popular, and it misses the point entirely.
There's a kind of famous soundbite that gets tossed around on occasion. 2 of them. One of them is it's a video clip of a nice guy doing a reading of the definition of foreshadowing that occasionally gets thrown into video essays when they're using foreshadowing. Because foreshadowing is a narrative device where it insert place for things that are about to come. The other and more relevant here is, and I think it's a gag, but it's a writer. It's like somebody playing a famous writer who says, "I know writers who use subtext. They're all cowards." And we live in a world that is devoid of the ability to read subtext, it seems. And now you're partially right about The Exorcist. There is a lot of familial anxiety there, especially in some of the it's really tapped into in a lot of the medical scenes where it's like taking the kid back to the doctor, back to the hospital. Here's another test.
Right.
I just want to know what's wrong. And that's a very real anxiety people have dealt with. The other major centerpiece emotionally and thematically of The Exorcist is the loss and search for faith. You again, one of our primary characters there is a priest struggling with his faith who, lost it and is kind of going through the motions. And
he actually loses his mother early on in the movie. So him and Chris McNeil, Ellen Burstyn's character, kind of have this opposite side. She's losing her daughter, but he's lost his mom. So they kind of come together, and in a very beautiful but rare Hollywood moment, there's no romance between them. It's, we have a thing to fight. We have no time to go make out.
Let me jump in here with that, because I don't want to go off on a tangent with this. We are a movie review podcast, but we occasionally will touch on the greater subjects that plague man.
The greater subjects.
No, we're not doing that again. First of all, David's not here. Don't steal his gimmick. But I've been thinking about in a increasingly secular sort of not atheist, but agnostic world.
Secular's correct. Like we're going down the tubes, man.
I don't want to get into like a whole like judgy thing, because we all have the three of us alone represent different perspectives on religion. So I don't want to have that debate. What I want to get across to people listening to the podcast tonight is that when you make a movie in the 1970s about the loss and finding of faith, through the story of this possession, you have somebody who is lost in the wilderness and comes to find faith at the end. It's very hard to now tell that story in a world where that is a foreign concept to most people. It's an argument that I get into with my dad. Again, I don't want to get into a huge thing here, but to make a point, the thing that my dad and I fight about when it comes to religion is he doesn't see the relevance or the importance of any religion. And he's very fond of quoting the devil, the greatest trick that the devil ever played on humanity was tricking into believing God was real or some bullshit like that. In any case,
the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
That's the one
quote.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, and hang on. As a brief aside, because I know we have wrestling fans here that occasionally watch our stuff. Because that phrase has been bandied about the professional wrestling world lately, and it sends Twitter into a tizzy of, CM Punk said this once, so that means he's going to show up. You idiots, that was part of the cultural zeitgeist 20 years before Punk was born. I beg of you, consume media other than men oiled up in spandex rubbing against each other.
To quote the great Patton Oswalt, read a book, you leptons. But my point is, I think this goes to, because we need to get into the plot after this shortly, but I think it goes to my major problem with this movie is that if you're not understanding the importance of any faith, this is not an evangelical podcast. I am not trying to sway anyone, but I think recognizing the structural and cultural importance of any faith is paramount. And if you don't believe, you don't believe, but I think it does have its place in society for many people. And when you don't even recognize that, when you can't acknowledge it, when you don't even realize the importance of it, but then you go and make a movie, yeah, sure. You're I was thinking about this, and I don't want to always compare everything to porno, but I was just like, I'm watching The Exorcist Believer, and I'm like, this is like the porn version of an Exorcist movie, where it's like you're just kind of watching the thing happen, and then the thing is done, and then that's the end of the movie, and you're like, this you're missing the point. The point isn't the action. The point is the journey, and there's no journey here. There was a journey in the 73. You look like you're like chomping at the bit, Dorian. So say your thing, and then let's move on.
This shirt is actually a little big for me, so it keeps like
I don't want to say anything. I'm choking. All right. Do you guys want to just weigh in on that, or do you want to jump into the plot synopsis? Robert?
Go ahead, Dorian. You go first.
I
got something to say.
I definitely agree with you. The only thing I'd add is that the Exorcists, both the first and the third one have big elements of the destruction of innocence, and that attack on that, which really brings anyone that is in any way a sane or even near balanced human being to the same plate, because none of us want to see kids hurt. We don't want to see families hurt.
Again, without going off into much of a tangent, which we're dangerously close to, that is one of my biggest problems with cultural relativism, is that it doesn't acknowledge the importance of preserving innocence. And that is a huge problem with the tearing asunder of the cultural fabric.
Can we just say I hate having to
You
say
can blurt the obvious, but I don't want to do 20 hours on this.
I'm not doing 20 hours. Again, I've got something to say relative to your point, but
yeah, go ahead.
There's nothing wrong with saying not all cultures are created equal. We've created them. Like they are the amalgamation of the people that have that inhabit them. Some of them are better than others. And culture has nothing to do with ethnicity. People have aligned themselves that way historically for any number of reasons, mostly geographic throughout human history. But we're at a point now when it's not ethnic. It's purely cultural, and not all cultures are created equal. Some of them suck. Some of them don't. And not going to get into it any further than that. That's just kind of where we are at the moment as a society.
No, but I feel like your new gimmick should be, I was like, I'm going to say what I want to say, and I fear not the consequences. Just so I can put that on a t-shirt now. Damn you, Hollywood. We fear not the consequences.
I fear not the consequences of man, at a bare minimum. Just kind of to your point very briefly about, what it takes to kind of make some of these movies good. Because, spoiler, this movie is not good. You and I, Mark, talked a little. You and I talked a little bit about sort of like why possession movies are so difficult to get right, especially in the modern age. When we talked about Pray for the Devil not that long ago.
Yeah, for those listening for me for the first time, because we always have new people watching now, we're getting popular. Last year, what was it? What was the name of the movie again?
Pray for the Devil.
Yeah, myself, Robert, and Jason Teasley last year reviewed Pray for the Devil. It's in the archive. It's a good listen for just the discussion on the historical film presence of exorcisms and why exorcist movies are not easy to make. So check that out. It's in our archive.
And we savaged that one too. But
and the clips of that discussion specifically are on my TikTok.
To kind of the point, the loss of innocence is a big one. The other problem that you run into with this movie in particular, this we'll get into craft, and I promise I'll save it for that point to elaborate. The manner in which you have to fight evil, and at a bare minimum, whatever you want to define evil as, I would like to think bare minimum, the corruption and destruction of innocence is that which is that's your definition of evil. You can. Fair. It seems fairly elementary to me. That's part of it. And
yet it escapes the cultural conversation on a very grand scale.
It really does, but that's where we are. Not to get too religious, but it is sadly prophesied for a long time that in the last days men call evil good and good evil, and boy are we getting there.
And not at a slow pace either.
It accelerates. That curve, it's it goes up at the end. All right, so the plot of this thing. So first up, we follow a pregnant woman and her husband. Her husband is Vincent, our main protagonist. They are in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and nothing bad's ever happened there, right?
No, not at all. Haiti, it's practically Shangri-La.
His name is Victor.
Victor, I knew it was a V.
You were close.
Victor. And they're in Port-au-Prince, and it just so happens to be they are vacationing. They're taking photos. Again, she's pregnant. They're having a good time. And that giant earthquake that ravaged Haiti a handful of years back hits. And as that scene was they said it in Haiti, and I went, would they? And then they did. And hang on. And I had a moment of pause, like, okay, they're doing this. Has it been there's the South Park joke. Like, has it been long enough? Can we make joke? Can we use this?
I think you can do. I think you can talk about a tragic circumstance a lot sooner when no one cares about the country or the incident.
Just saying it, huh?
I fear not the consequences.
Well, look, the earthquake in question took place in 2010, so we're 13 years on. At that point, I do think it's fair game to set something during that time period. It's not purely exploitative.
Let's put it this way. Let's put it this way, just not to go on too much in a tangent here, but how many years after September 11th did we get September 11th movies? Because it was real short.
5 or 6, I want to say.
Then there's your line.
World Trade Center was pretty darn close too.
Yeah. I was like, if that sets your bar, and I think it does, then you're good at 5-6 years.
So we're good there. I just had to take a moment, partially because like time has become weird. Like we've all lost perspective. Like again, 10 to 23 doesn't feel like 13 years for some odd reason.
Right. We did kind of lose 2 years in there.
Lost a lot more. We lost more than that.
But... Well, yeah, but it was like COVID alone kind of reset everyone's brain to be like, wait, it's not still 2020?
A little bit.
No, you got to come back with me, Marty.
Yeah, we're the 80s are 40 years ago. That's where we are. But so they're there for this earthquake, and his pregnant wife is injured, and he is told by the doctors, "We can save your wife, or we can save your child." And oh, your horrible Sophie's Choice. And then we smash cut to 13 years later when his daughter's alive. And
Spoilers.
Oh, hang on. In theory, the spoiler comes later, the big twist.
Oh, yeah.
So, God, that's stupid.
Can you call it a
Keep
twist
going.
if you don't set it up?
That's a fair question, and I don't think you can. So our narrative loophole. Anyway, he's a single dad. He's got, again, a 13-year-old daughter who, he's doing the best he can. He's a little bit overprotective. And she's trying to spread her wings, and she wants to go do stuff with her friends. And he's like, fine, I'll trust you this once. And of course, this once winds up being a very, very bad series of events. She and her friend Catherine go walking in the woods one evening, and they find the big bad wolf. Well,
it's set up that they want to fuck around with like black magic and like seances and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she wants to contact her mom.
She does.
Right.
And
the mom's dead, by the way, if you all didn't catch that.
In case that wasn't made clear.
Hey, she could have left him. Could have been a divorce. We don't know.
So as she's trying to contact her dead mom, something goes sideways, and we cut to the dad, who's later that evening like, hey, you're not home. Tries to call her, no answer. Calls the family that she's supposed to be seeing. They still there? And like, no, they told us they were staying at this other girl's house. So, oh crap. Now, suddenly every parent's worst nightmare. Like, oh, where's my kid?
Right.
And they start looking. They get the police involved. And 3 days later, the kids wind up in a horse barn. Not having any concept of how much time has passed. They are examined. We're all trying to figure out what happened. And turns out they, took a little jaunt through the underworld and came back possessed by some such.
Like you do.
And things get a little bit creepy and a little bit weird. And, that grows for a little bit. And the daughter winds up in a facility for the mentally disturbed because, this looks very much like mental illness. And the angry dad is trying to find answers, and his neighbor, who's a nurse, is like, hey, here's a book written by Ellen Burstyn, who, was the mother from the first Exorcist movie, who got kind of famous off of this stuff. So, go bother her. I'm sure she'll be happy to be solicited by strangers. And he goes, and he bothers her, and she is happy to be solicited by a stranger. And she, in the single worst piece of dialogue in this entire movie, because it has no place here, she recounts what happened with Reagan in the first movie, and he goes, wait, you didn't get to see the exorcism? And she says, no, the priest wouldn't let me because I wasn't part of their damned patriarchy.
It wouldn't have worked if Keenan Ivory Wayans hadn't entered the scene wearing a mailbag yelling message.
If I hadn't been adequately prepared for that line, I would have thrown something at the movie screen.
Yeah, my other problem with that scene My other problem with that scene was the horn after she says that line. Like, though they wouldn't let me see The Exorcist because of the patriarchy. Wah, 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 wah. It's so bad.
So he recruits her because she's done a lot of studying on exorcisms across all cultures, Mark, because don't you know, all cultures, the vast rainbow, the cornucopia of humanity has exorcism stories, and she's an expert on all of them. So they go briefly to see his daughter in the asylum. Nothing really happens. They go to find the other girl because they're both possessed by the same spirit, and it's important, and they're bonded for life. And
I gotta jump in real quick because I was thinking about this. Like, what did this remind me of? Oh yeah, it reminded me of Us, where the greatest modern trope in cinema making currently is all white people are terrible, especially families. The white nuclear family, the worst. Every fucking movie I'm seeing now, it's always an angry dad, a drunk fucking crazy mom, shitty kids. Like, there is a thing right now in Hollywood. People are like, speaking of people are being possessed by demons as such. However, Hollywood writers are definitely trying to work through some shit. It is unreal. Hollywood completely out of ideas.
I'll yell about it later if you want to touch on it again. So they go to find Catherine, and Catherine is terrorizing her family. And Ellen Burstyn walks up the stairs alone and gets her eyes stabbed out with a crucifix. And they wind up getting both the girls together. They try to perform, and we bring together again the vast panoply of everyone involved. There's your good old
for the
Protestant.
next fucking 6 hours, they have to perform this exorcism.
We assemble the Avengers across 3 other movies. You got the Protestant, you got the Baptist evangelical, you got like, the voodoo.
This is the Captain Planet of exorcism movies. They came from around the world. They came from around the world with various powers of religion.
And the most useless is still Heart. Captain Planet joke, everybody, in the year of our Lord 2023.
We are current. We are current.
But the Catholic priest says I couldn't get permission from the diocese to actually perform this, so he gives the nurse a Bible and a crucifix and says, "You can do this."
Here's your shield.
I've seen regional MMA fights where this happens. Somebody comes out and says to the crowd, "We had a fighter not show up. Does anybody want to fight?" And they grab somebody out of the crowd and throw them into the cage.
No, it's not horribly important, but the nurse was studying to be a nun, but then started losing her faith, ended up having a kid and an abortion, so then she left the church and became a nurse. That's the reason she's picked to get the Bible and the crucifix, if she has some background.
It is important to say to our Catholic audience, such as they are, there's a vast difference between I'm studying to be a nun and I can perform an exorcism. That is the Will Smith in Independence Day. I saw how it flies. I'm pretty sure I can fly the space alien ship.
It's almost as dumb as Jeff Goldblum going, I can hook my iPad up to this alien technology.
It's not even an iPad. It's like like Apple.
It's a Dell. It's like a Dell laptop.
No, it was a MacBook, but it's still.
No. This predates MacBooks. MacBooks did not exist when Independence Day came out.
It was a stupid laptop. Move on.
It was a Macintosh or something.
It might have been. Mac, only good for itself and alien technology.
If you want to give an alien a virus, buy a Mac.
You're not wrong. And anyway, so everyone shows up. We try the exorcism. It goes badly. We tried the exorcism again. There's all kinds of things. The Catholic priest shows up in our Han Solo moment, but in this instance, he immediately gets his head turned around.
Because we got to get
too.
Yes.
And then the devil, speaking through the possessed girls, says, "Okay, he kind of mocks Victor, like, yeah, you made a choice back in Haiti, didn't you?" And then we flash back to him saying, "No, save my wife, not the baby." Obviously, this didn't work. But this is our big shocking revelation here. And now you two, all the two families here, you got the single dad and you got the mom and the father for Catherine. Like, you have to choose. Only one of these girls can live or they're both going to die. And this movie did not earn a finale that is the worst iteration of this mediocre morality play. So we try to break the separation between, we try to break the connection between them. There's a little bit of faith going on, and then the dad, because it's always the dad, the white dad, who just
Yep.
screws it all up. He says, "I choose Catherine," and then the demon. But you can't trust the devil. Spoiler alert there for anyone that you can't do it. You can't trust him.
In case you
So
haven't heard of biblical stories or history for the last 2,000 years.
Even predating the assemblage of the Bible, don't trust the demons. It doesn't work.
If you haven't seen a horror movie ever, you may not know this.
So
There's been enough of them.
The demon leaves our protagonist's daughter and then kills Catherine because, again, you can't trust the devil. And our postscript to all of this: the girl goes back to school and starts trying to live life normally, and we're assured by a unbearably ineffectual police detective that families recover. Let me tell you, everyone out there, as a child of divorce, that scene when this is from The White Family, when the mom is like walking up to the dad, they're in a restaurant because you meet in public after you're divorced. Like that, her walking up to meet him in that diner and whatnot, like that's the divorced parents meeting. There's no recovery from that.
Okay.
Families recover. Well, statistically, not if you lose a kid. I can show the odds on that are actually pretty empirical. And we get our theoretical payoff to all of this when Linda Blair does a brief cameo reprising the role of Reagan. She shows up and she reconciles with her mom because of nostalgia. And please see the sequel.
All right, Dorian, hit me one time.
Oh, this is the notes time. This
this is your moment.
Go. Before I go any further, just because I know there's other big Exorcist fans in the audience, I did not on purpose forget the Exorcist TV show. We were just talking about movies, but for all of you who don't know this, there was an Exorcist TV show as well. Linda Blair did return. It told its own story, so it's out there too if you want to watch it. So it technically is part of the Exorcist world.
What are you doing here, Linda Blair? A very brief cameo.
Me too. Great Muppet Caper, people. Go watch that instead of this.
My favorite Muppet movie.
Just starting with the cast: Leslie Odom Jr., who, if our audience doesn't recognize the name specifically, he was the original Aaron Burr in Hamilton, the musical Broadway sensation. He has done well in everything I've seen, and he does well in this. Even despite all the problems the movie has. There are moments I wish he'd had more emotion. Like he
or any.
Well, there were moments that it worked. Like, he tries to keep himself very, contained and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I get that. There were just moments where it was like, especially post Everything's Gone to Hell, no pun intended, that I really expected him to get a little bit more angry. However, I can see a director going, I don't want to lean into angry black guy stereotype. Let's not do that. But I can also understand with the direction and the writing they did.
See, I gotta stop you there, because when we start treating minorities like they're not human beings, that's an insult to the minority. Black people get angry too. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not. This isn't me coming after you, but if the projection is, well, we don't want to lean into angry black guys. Okay, but black guys get angry too. That's part of the human experience. Last time I checked.
So your black characters, it's all right. Male black characters can't ever be angry, just like female characters can never ask for help. Got it.
Yeah, this is why we deconstruct these movies and why we complain about them the way we do, because it gets to a point where you're now overthinking a lot of your characterizations to not insult anybody, and then you just get a mayonnaise sandwich.
Yeah.
Yuck.
And again, and I definitely agree. People get angry, even my scripts, when we have an actor of color playing a character. That doesn't mean that's like, oh, well, we have to avoid all this stuff. But again, what we talked about earlier of like Hollywood seeming like they're trying to work through shit. The idea crossed my mind when I watched it, or like got to the end. I was like,
oh, look, don't get me wrong. And I have some shit to say about the marketing of this movie. It's just like, what are we going to do that's different? How about a black girl instead of a white girl? You can't just do a black girl. You got to have a white girl in there too. Okay, but don't put her in the marketing because you'll scare the straights.
Right. But yeah, some of the dialogue got too fast paced and almost like they were trying to rush through the scene but still get everything said. It's like, that's not how people talk. However, again, Leslie Odom Jr. still bringing it home. Most interesting character of the movie, in my opinion. I mean, it's a good thing he was the lead. He was a great POV. I'm sorry, I wouldn't say the most interesting character. We'll get to that in a second. But he was definitely a great POV that you could put yourself behind and kind of feel the world through his eyes. I'm gonna probably mess this name up. So if you're watching this actor who I'm about to say your name, I'm so sorry. Lidya Jewett plays the daughter.
She's great.
Oh yeah. I wanted more time with her pre-possession, because one of the things that Reagan that's so great about Reagan is that by the time stuff starts going wrong, you know enough about her to go, this isn't right. Something's off, and then obviously it goes worse.
Yeah, I agree. They really rushed the kids to the mall on this one, and considering she's probably the highlight performance of this entire piece, and she's genuinely a character you don't want to see harmed by a demon and you want to see saved. It would have been nice to have connected with her for a little longer period of time before we threw her into the demon soup.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Part of what makes the first Exorcist movie work is you actually like Reagan by the time things go really bad for her.
Right.
We don't have enough time with Angela here to actually form an opinion beyond, teenage girl.
Right. So you're just kind of left with, well, who wants to see a child harmed? Which is strong, but you need more for this to really work.
Here's the flip side of that being strong. I'm not saying it's not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scale, and it's very obvious. The younger the kid, the more true that statement rings.
Right.
By the time you get to 12 and 13, you're pushing. I mean this genuinely.
Yes. At the age that my father told me I turned into a complete asshole. No, I see where you're going with this.
Like you lose the benefit of the doubt there about that age is all when it comes to this. And so it doesn't have to be a ton. Like we don't need everyone's most intimate thought, but you can throw a 5-year-old on screen and people will immediately go, "Oh, yay, 5-year-old," right. And we know what's up.
It's the Baby Yoda effect. You have a cute young child, and suddenly everyone's just like, "Oh, the thing." You get to 12, 13, you get to the preteen, 12, 13 years old, and she's an adorable looking kid, and she's a great performer. But yes, the puppy love is gone.
Yeah.
Dorian.
No, Steve. You're fine. You're fine. Again, you said you're going to break in, and that's what this show's for. But yeah, other than that, she was fantastic. I was rooting for her to live. I was worried. Even like once we had 2, I was like, man, are we going to lose both of them? Is one going to go down?
They're not killing a black kid in the year of our Lord 2023.
Would have been a stronger ending if they had.
Again, I was about to say, thank you. Is literally, I would have thought that brave. Especially if they would have leaned into he didn't want the kid. But again, they none of that
would be great.
And then like maybe he has to go back and try the sequels that may or may not happen at this point. Would deal with that. Because one thing that they don't do a lot is, I'm not saying make the parent shitty, but you can make them more human. Of like, I didn't want this. I didn't. Right. I mean, I love you. You're my kid. But
a great scene of him talking to Nettles about like. The great tragedy of all this, like the heaviest burden, my great guilt about everything is that I didn't. When it came down to it, I chose my wife over the kid, and now I feel like I'm being punished by God. I just whipped that out just in the course of this conversation. These are like Hollywood writers who had months to work on this script and they couldn't come up with that. Not that I'm like a film genius or anything, but like it kind of writes itself.
No. This is another thing that this movie completely misses.
Mm-hmm.
You can't throw that in as like a pseudo twist at the end of the film to try and ring some. You can't.
Shyamalan?
Well, a good twist works because if you think back about it, it's obvious.
Right.
That's what makes it work.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Well, so hang on. So my point here is, if you want to take us on this journey, the emotional journey with this character of. I said save my wife. It didn't work. I have my daughter. I love my daughter, but I'm still racked with guilt about this, and I still don't know, how to process all of this stuff. And I lost my faith before this happened anyway, kind of thing. Like if that's the journey of this character, you can't throw that in at the end. That's got to be there the whole way.
Yeah,
Right.
this would have worked better if they had allowed him as the photographer to, like, hey, I want to get a shot of you, like leaning up against the church bell. I don't want to climb all those steps, honey. Oh, it'll be a great shot. Come on, do it. Him just being young, impetuous, and kind of stupid. And then the earthquake hits, and it's like, if I hadn't told her to get for that shot, she'd be alive.
Sure. And then again, you go into like modern times, and he's like nightmares from, like, oh, my wife, like I that sort of thing, like him still wrestling with this, maybe a conflict with him and the daughter. Like, they almost like him and the daughter got along way too well, because God forbid, only the white people can be shitty. So but it would have been nice. It would have been nice if he had more conflict with her, and some of it being, I don't want to keep losing it with her because I'm so racked with guilt over this other thing.
Well, and then the mom's last spoken line, as after the accident happens, is protect her. So it's like really lean into that overprotective dad, because again, if we did it our way, where it's like he sent her up there to get a shot, everything went to hell, he blames himself, but her last words to him, like before she probably lost consciousness, was protect her. So now it's like, no, no, do not open that can of tuna. You have no idea what could happen. I mean, maybe not that far, but that.
Well, no, like, to your point, if you want to, there's one line of dialogue here about that gives you a hint about how like involved and protective he is, and that's when she says, "I'd like to go study with my friend," and he goes, "I thought you were going to do what you always do. I pick you up from school, you wait around to study and do homework at the photography studio while I work, and then we come home." Like, that's a little bit but one line of dialogue for stuff that happens off screen doesn't actually work in this case. We need to see a bit more of it. We need to see the friction between them. We need to see some of that.
Not to beat this particular fucking drum, but that's kind of the point that I was making earlier about.
Oh yeah,
I don't think the people making this movie knew how to make a movie. How to make a movie is you have to find elements that resonate with your audience. When you leave all those things out and it's like, hurry up and get to the possession already, that's all anyone cares about. It's like the death match. If you don't want to use the porn analogy, it's like the death match of fucking movies. It's like, well, let's skip the storytelling.
We come out with the light tubes.
Yeah, like let's skip the pretense of a wrestling match here and go immediately to gusset plates and fucking light tubes, because that's all anyone came for. It's like, that's how you create a puddle of a movie, not a pool. Go ahead, Dorian.
Yeah, continuing through the cast, and since we've been talking about her a bunch, poor Olivia O Neill plays Catherine.
Oh, she gets the shit out of the stick in this movie.
Giving it her all. She was underutilized.
Big time.
Pre full makeup, she is creepy as hell.
Yo, fucking best casted character since the broad from Evil Dead Rise, based on her normal facial features. Like obviously they do a good makeup job on her, but like, wow, like when you see her first,
if you've got a strong foundation, you can do some fun stuff with it.
And that's the thing, like not since the girl from Evil Dead Rise have I seen like another person casted that looks perfect in the makeup. She's, because she has a great foundation. Like that kid, mad props for being a great find for that role.
Which, again, coming back to the story, I really wish, again, if it was already decided we were going to kill her, whether out of white guilt or that's how the story rolled, I don't care. But make her our villain. Make it like that she is like a Satanist or something like that. So it's like, we've been wasting time trying to save you and you're
just a bag of dick teenagers. Well, like bullying some girl.
Again, see, I go back to, and this is a very, very old film, but The Bad Seed, from I believe I think done well, children villains can be far more terrifying than an adult, especially if we're going into this realm of the supernatural.
Yeah,
and using her as a villain, if that could have been your twist at the end. Where it's like, she didn't want to get baptized. That's kind of a small conversation that they throw away. The mom was like, "Oh, we should wait," and da. So it's like, okay, maybe she like got into shit way too early. Like some kids get into drugs, like, before they're in their teens. Just in bad neighborhoods.
Bunch of people who wind up taking their first drink from their parents' liquor cabinet at age 8.
Yeah, and then it kind of goes to hell from there. But again, I feel like she was fantastic. I mean, both young actresses are awesome. But Olivia O Neill, in my opinion, really brought the creepy factor that Linda Blair and crew, obviously because they had somebody else overdubbing her possessed voice, in the original Exorcist. That got close enough for me that I was like, it feels kind of like we're back in, that old Exorcist that I know and love. But very quickly on, just because that it bounces off this character, because they're so forgettable, other than, like you said, angry dad. Cut the parents. You don't need them. They are completely ancillary. You could have made her an orphan that goes to this school,
No, they had to add to their audience's reaction of being okay with her dying. Because again, we can't, because it's like there had to be like a meeting, or like an idea being thrown, brainstorming session being thrown around, which is like, how do we make people by the end of this movie okay with killing the white girl? I don't know. Make the parents extra shitty for no good reason, and then make them mean to the black guy for no good reason.
My problem was that, and again, I was raised very strict Southern Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam flashbacks there, sorry. And without going into my own personal life too much, because let's not turn this into a Dr. Phil episode, those parents did feel like Southern Baptist parents. They're a little strict, stuff like that, but they weren't assholes. Like the times that the dad gets angry when he kicks the thing over, his daughter's missing. Okay, to me, that is a fair reaction.
Yeah.
Where's my daughter? We don't know. Bang, I'm angry. I'm not going to choke the cop, so I'm going to kick a trash can because I'm angry. That didn't bug me as much. When they were rude to Leslie Odom Jr., there was like, sir, I've never heard of you, and trust me, if I had heard of you, you and I would have spent a lot more time together because our daughters are hanging out. Shitty, but again, maybe this is just because I was around Southern Baptist people. I was like, that's not unheard of, and I've seen a whole lot worse. So,
yeah.
I just minor objection to the dad's reaction to the cop. I didn't feel like it was earned, because again, I have seen situations where the person in charge is so wildly obtuse that yes, by the end of it, you want to punch that person and kick a garbage can. I never felt like that scene hit that fever pitch. And the cop was being perfectly reasonable, and yes, he's missing his daughter, and I get that, but it was almost overly too misplaced anger. It didn't feel genuine to me.
Yeah, no, and I really feel that they there's an old joke that I use in my writing. It's like, dude, I think you skipped a couple steps there.
Yes, that escalated quickly.
Freaked out, terrified, then angry. That feeling of helplessness. Let's get to that helplessness first. Let him cry. And again, if you still want to lead into macho guy, he's like, oh God, I'm crying. Anger,
Yeah.
Then you've got a flowing character moment. But again, overall, those two served no purpose, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At all. Well, and now we get to the thing. This is what everyone came to see. It's the whole reason when the trailers dropped, you went, all right, maybe. Ellen Burstyn. It was cool to see Chris McNeil back. It really was. I mean, it did feel very, and again, same director, obviously, and same writers, I believe. It did feel very 2018 Halloween, and this is another trope that I use when I'm in writers' rooms that I like to, when we're writing something together, I want to avoid is I don't like there's only one man I know who can help us trope. And
yeah, I don't know why they had that scene in there where Ellen Burstyn was putting like the bandana around her head and was tying up her boots, and she has the boa knife. Wait a minute.
Hey, if they'd done that, we've been like, oh, you're not doing Exorcist, you're doing Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen. Okay, cool. Out. We're in. Refill the popcorn. I'm down. Best movie of the year. But no, again, it's she also I liked how she was back. Because I knew when I saw the trailers and I saw who was directing, and I'm like, this is the same Laurie Strode thing. In the 2018 one. Someone's going to her for help because she knows how to deal with this thing. I liked how she wasn't in this like religious compound, like maybe she'd become a nun or some shit like that. She's living on the beach, and it's just a very sad older woman because the action she took in writing the book, which she thought would be helpful to other parents, drove Reagan away, and she's feeling like a failure. I liked that, but I also liked that she wasn't like Batman brooding in the corner, like, leave me to my suffering, because kind of shit.
I'm so glad they didn't make her that Byronic. That would have been just a terrible
You know what
misstep.
would have been helpful, though? If we were going to do her reuniting with Reagan, instead of a throwaway point at the end of the movie for sequel bait, maybe make that a subplot and weave that in as part of the narrative. Because this movie is so... my point is, like, your movie should not be dependent on, well, we'll get to it in the sequel. No, make that your subplot, weave that into the narrative, make this thing thicker and juicier and meatier, not, this sort of, fucking piece of bread that it was. And then it's again, you have this really thin slice of bread, what this movie is, and then at the very end, you threw on this juicy hamburger patty, and it's like, oh, now the bread's gone. You crushed the bread. It's done.
Well, and again, with the like Robert said, you can't trust the devil, and we all know that. But like one of the lines that the possessed child says to Chris is, you're looking for Reagan. We drug her to hell, or we took her to hell. So it's like they opened a door and then went, and just like closed it, and I was like, whatever. And actually talking about Linda Blair, my next note literally reads, and I quote, "Hi, Linda Blair. Good to see you. Moving on."
What are you doing here, Linda Blair?
It's the cheapest of cheap nostalgia pops. It galled me.
Robert, you can probably summon a really good example of this, but like for our wrestling audience or our non-wrestling audience, bear with me. Occasionally they bring back a legend, and you're like, oh my god!
Occasionally,
Sting is back or some shit. And it's like they get in the ring and it's like, oh, you're going to get it now. Vicious heel. Sting is here. And immediately they drop Sting on his head, like kick him out of the ring. And it's like, wait, why? Why did you even bring him back then? That was the feeling I got when Linda Blair showed up. And again, I'm not an Exorcist fan, so it didn't even mean as much to me, but it just felt like, why did you bring this person here just to do that at the very end of the movie, where you're supposed to be like wrapping things up, all your loose ends, you're supposed to be getting to your conclusion, and then you do this whole other thing which has no real relevance to the narrative you told. And call me crazy for being married to strict narrative structure, but I feel like your story should have should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we shouldn't be starting a brand new. It's not television. Don't start a new story in the last 2 minutes of Act 3.
Next time on The Exorcist.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not wrong.
Same Exorcist time, same Exorcist channel.
I mean, moreover to that point,
will Linda Blair do more in the next movie than just show up? Will Ellen Burstyn even show up for the next movie? Tune in next time.
Tune in December 2025.
Right.
Well, hang on, just to that point very briefly. Again, make it a subplot or lean harder into... This is part of the problem with how they set this up. Because we're going with a sequel to the original movie, where again we're kind of ignoring 2 and 3 for the continuity of this film structure, which is kind of what this director does. Like, oh yeah, that first one was good. Well, there's this lineage afterwards that's up and down and whatever. Like, no, this is the point that I want to care about. So
it's not just this director. Fucking Cameron did it with dark feminism. This is a trope now. This is the thing we're doing.
It is, but. Set aside dark feminism because time travel.
Okay, for those of you who don't know our snarkiness, that would be Terminator Dark. What was it? Dark Bagels, Dark Horizon, Dark Fate. Thank you. Terminator Dark Fate, which came out a few years ago, and it was the spiritual sequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and it made Robert and I want to throw pants, a baby, and everything else at the screen.
But again, he decided, with Halloween, like, oh, so let's do a sequel to the first one. We kind of went, we all kind of liked Halloween too. And I don't know what you're doing here, but suddenly making Michael Myers his Halloween trilogy, it had ups and downs. We've reviewed all 3 of them, so you can look those up in the archives.
We've reviewed the entire fucking franchise at this point, save the Rob Zombie ones.
Which are, I will actually stand up for those just a little bit. And I do it mostly to annoy horror people. Yeah.
All right, settle down there. Settle down there, Irish McGee.
I'll stick up for those just a little bit, but
there's
not entirely.
There's a couple parts of the Rob Zombie ones that I will stand up for, but that's not what we're talking about. So I didn't want to. That's why I just did this. I was like,
yeah. So we have to.
Land the point
being, we have to now invent wholesale what was actually be an interesting story about how Chris and Reagan had their falling out, like that's actually an interesting story.
It's kind of. I'd rather have watched that.
Yeah,
Well,
but
the-
and that gets shoved into lines of dialogue as throwaway to set up where they are now, because when they ended the original movie, they're together and they're happy, and you're undoing what happened before, not necessarily unfairly, but you're not giving us the appropriate journey to the payoff to set up the next journey that you would need for these characters, and because of that, it falls real flat
Here's
on
my
its
other
face.
problem with that. Falling strictly under the heading of Hollywood completely out of ideas. Would Hollywood writers know what to do if their beginning point was everything has fallen apart in the interim? Because Ghostbusters, The Exorcist, I can go on and on and on. Every movie we've watched over like the past couple of years where we're reflecting on nostalgia, we're doing spiritual sequels, etc., it's always in the same place. Everything has gone to hell. Everything has gone to pieces. No one's talking to each other. Everyone hates each other. And our movie is how we get the band back together. Right. Yep. And it's like, there are other journeys in life. There are other life experiences where people, I don't know, get along, families stay together, people enjoy one another, and yet things still happen to challenge them, and they can go on a journey and learn new things and be better people. And it's like Hollywood is not interested in or doesn't know them. Either not interested or doesn't know those stories. It said, no, everybody, fucking Han Solo, Indiana Jones, like everyone's terrible. Everyone's life is falling apart.
Especially if your protagonist, not to kick this rock too much, but especially if your protagonist is a man, his life has to go to hell between movies.
Oh my God, his wife and children hate him because again, all men are terrible. And it's like, we have to get to the end of the movie where, oh, he's not so bad. He's not so bad. Like, ugh, really?
From a filmmaking point of view, the reason that I think they do that is that every now and again we do get a good film that does that. Case in point, in the last decade, Logan really worked with the whole everything.
Wow, are you pointing to one of the very few exceptions? Logan is exceptional.
Well,
but boy, is it not the rule.
But Mark, Lizard Brain.
Yeah.
Fair.
Which movies gets the headline? Is it Logan or is it the umpteen failures?
I was going to say, as soon as you said Lizard Brain, I was like, you're right, Robert. I don't know what I was thinking. I won't burn the meatloaf next time. Go ahead, Dorian.
But yeah, no, that's that. And I think that's what they do is because why they do it is because they've seen it successful and they're like, oh, we can do it again. It's fine.
Yeah.
We'll just do it. We're doing it with a different character this time.
We have a 10th the talent, but yeah, we can be James Mangold.
Well, no. It's not only a 10th the talent. It is. Let's talk Logan for just a second here to make this point.
For those that don't know, Logan is the third of the Wolverine solo movies from the X-Men, the greater X-Men franchise under Fox. And it was an adaptation of Old Man Logan, which was a comic, yada, yada, yada.
And its timeline is about to be erased by something Disney's going to do in the next 5 years. No one cares.
Wasn't it the fourth Wolverine movie? Because we had Origins. Third. Never mind.
Yeah, it's only 3.
My bad. Go ahead.
You're one of the few who went with Origins and then went, wait, was there another one besides the Wolverine in there?
I think sometimes people count Days of Future Past, but that's canonically not a Wolverine movie. It's an X-Men movie.
For some reason, I thought there was another one in there, and then as it was coming out of my mouth, I'm like, "Shut up, idiot! You're wrong."
Well, look. Given the huge success of the Gambit movie, it's understandable you'd be confused.
Fuck you.
Gambit is very near and dear to my heart, so.
No, that's an ongoing gag from like a decade ago where I was insisting they were going to make the Channing Tatum Gambit movie, and it is not.
8 years ago, Mark said, "Hey, the Gambit movie is going to come out," and he and I made a bet about this. Actually, I said,
we also made a bet about Barbie, and that happened. You're fucking tempting fate here.
It did. Anyway,
but yeah, no, I think that's one of the reasons they do it.
Hang on. Robert was going to say something about Logan.
Well, the point there before we got sidetracked. If you look at the character of Wolverine and Logan, this is a, violent, gritty character who's always been interesting when things around him are stripped away. He is desperately looking for connection and family, even though he's gruff about it. He finds it, you take it away, what happens? Logan as a character, as an older, broken down re-examination of the violent heroic archetype is interesting. Not every character is built for that. And this is the other problem that you run into, especially since superhero movies try to do this. Well, what if we did old Captain America? Nobody cares. Nobody wants to see Steve Rogers as an old man. Couldn't we do old Deadpool? No, don't do any Deadpool. It's terrible. but you've started to see these discussions across various across different movies as the MCU desperately flounders around to try and find its footing, which it may or may not. And like, recycling old ideas it's kind of old hat, but you have to have more of a discerning eye about this. Like, why does the older, more broken down hero archetype work for Logan and not for Han Solo? The answer is fairly self-evident when you think about it for half a second. But if you don't, you just go, yeah, sure. He's old,
Right.
he's broken down, and who cares?
Again, it's the idiot's approach to everything, where it's like, well, this was popular. I think this was popular for this reason, so I'll replicate it in these 9 other circumstances, and you're like 0 for 9. And like, well, I don't understand what I did wrong. I just did the same thing over and over and over again that worked that one time.
I don't want to hit Robert's nuclear button here, but I mean the same issue with the Flash. It's like, so Batman's this old drunk painter now.
Yep.
Making spaghetti in the kitchen.
Yeah,
He's
because Alfred's not there, and he never learned to make anything else.
Why does Bruce Wayne look like a homeless man?
Well, what happened was Alfred died, and there was no one there to cut his hair. Go ahead, Dorian.
It's like that joke from Dark Knight Rises. You don't have your keys? Never needed them. Although in that case, that line kind of worked. Sorry, coming back to the movie we're actually talking about today. I'll blast through the rest of these notes. Most interesting character to me, the one that I wanted to know more about, and I'm glad she got the screen time she did. I wish she had gotten more, was Anne Dowd as Anne, the nurse.
Oh, yeah.
I felt that I did not get the chance to write down her name, she used to be an oncologist, and then she's kind of our
she's the voodoo lady, the
voodoo
doctor,
Wiccan
whatever
kind of thing. I wanted more time with both of them because I really think that they could have, if you are going to copy paste, they could have been our Father Merrin and Father Karras from the original.
Well, you know what? For the more you talk about that, the more I realize like this movie is horribly half pregnant. Like, it's half trying to assemble interesting characters to fight evil, but it's also truncated and shortened that we don't actually get anything we want out of that. And it's half familial drama that is shortchanged with inadequate writing and not enough time because we're also assembling the Avengers. Like, there's so many more interesting concepts and ideas in this movie that could have been explored better. And instead, because everything is done by lizard brain operating at a breakneck pace to accommodate the release schedule, we get stuff that is a bunch of different. There's 4 different half-formed ideas and themes that go into this movie. Pick one, make it good.
Right? It was like, and if you're gonna do what they did, get Sean Patrick Flannery at the end to walk in the peacoat and be like, "I'm here to talk to you about the Saints Initiative."
All right,
and shepherds we shall be.
Anything else, Dorian?
Yeah, just a few. This is just craft stuff here at the end. I have some like final thoughts when everybody else has had their piece, but the story seemed very just Exorcist version of Halloween 2018. So I already talked about that. Again, we already talked about the too many characters, not enough time to care. The Catherine's death, again, I've already kind of talked about this, but just the final point on this. It seemed, again, like I said, more of white guilt than a writing choice.
I've seen more than one person talk about the ending to this movie and just come to the same conclusion that the quality of this movie didn't earn its ending. And I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah, I do. I agree. And my biggest problem was, I understand the parents are dicks and you can't trust the devil. But I'm sorry, why does choosing your child make you the bad guy? Like, again, I get the whole you can't trust the devil. I'm with that. But you would be worse if you're like, I don't give a fuck. Let the demons roll the dice.
There are parents viciously fighting right now on soccer fields about my kid's the most important kid on this field, let alone a demonic possession where they would choose their own kid. But, so point made. Go ahead, Robert. I know you had some shit to say, a rant or two in there. So
no rant.
Go ahead and...
I don't think
what did you think of this movie, Robert?
You asked me to use this line, so I'm going to use it. This is a nothing movie. It's hollow, it's shallow, it's baked into the current culture of cashing in nostalgia dollars. In this instance, over a property that, while it does have again, the first Exorcist movie is still a genuine cultural touchstone. It permeated everything for a while, and it still lingers. But not understanding the how and the why of how it worked, why it worked, what actually scared people about it, and what made people care about what was happening, you're left with just, hey, let's play the theme song and let's get some of the actors back. And
Let's not even play the full theme song until halfway through. Let's do that whole da 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 da. It's like,
and
there's another note after that. I have the sheet music.
You're not wrong. So you're left with a lot of that. You're left with there's maybe the best way to phrase it is this. The approach that David Gordon Green took with Halloween worked more or less because not any idiot can make a decent Halloween movie. There's ample evidence to the contrary, in point of fact. It's not the most sophisticated story or story structure, and he had a decent enough eye for some of the kills, and there were different scenes that actually had some pretty good tension throughout those movies. But this is the wrong franchise to take that approach with. The Exorcist works because it taps into something very, very deep and very, very universal in experience. And when you're trying to do shallow nostalgia bait around that, you want to do shallow nostalgia bait around the slasher genre, dude, that's almost all it is at this point, for good, bad, and otherwise. It can sustain that because you're drawn to jump scares, some inventive kills, and a good-looking villain. That's really all you need for a slasher movie. The great ones have more, but you can make a passable slasher movie with those. Possession films in general are pass-fail, and there's a giant gulf between what succeeds and what fails. And
it's a steep learning curve.
Yeah. You need a sophisticated eye, you need a sophisticated pen, and this is the wrong guy in the wrong franchise to try and pull this off. And please, if there's anyone listening at Blumhouse who has any say, keep this bloviating jackass as far away from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise as you can.
I want to throw this out there as a pitch, and I'll produce for Blumhouse. Take David Gordon Green out of the horror genre, put him in the 80s sex romp genre. Let's get him to bring that back, because I'm thinking David Gordon Green's Porky's. Let's get that going. He's got the eye for it.
David Gordon Green's Caddyshack.
There we go.
You can't. You'll piss way too many people off with Caddyshack.
We already pissed people off. We left that in the rearview mirror. If we're gonna do it, let's just drive it straight into the wall.
But you mentioned Porky's and Meatballs. What's the other one? You know what? No.
Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah. If we're gonna do David Gordon Green, I want either Summer School or Revenge of the Nerds. Like
we can do them all. Look, he's obviously like an it guy director right now. Like we get him on the cheap, but he's fairly passable. His shit makes money. Like, give him a modest budget. We'll talk about that in a minute. Modest budget. Get him on Porky's, Meatballs. What was the one you just said?
Revenge of the Nerds.
Revenge of the Nerds. He's got movies for the next 20 years, and these will all be wonderful. Just, all rated R. No more of this PG-13 bullshit. All rated R. All hot girls. All David Gordon Green. All the dumbest, most gonzo porno shit. But it'll be awesome. This is what America. Look, America is in a sad, depressive state of affairs right now. We need the return of the 80s sex romp, not the think piece that was No Hard Feelings. I mean, let's get back to basics, people.
This is okay.
Robert, I'm going to call on your bitchy yoga mom inside. How many times has our dad Mark mentioned porn in this review?
Not enough.
We're up to about 8 now.
We are close to hitting double digits.
We are really on a whole new bingo card, by the way, because that's got to be another one.
Well, hang on. First of all, we have exhibit number 6,325 in Mark's ongoing campaign to restore the raunchy sex comedy to cinema prominence. Instead of
I need a remake. I need a remake of Joysticks. I need a remake of Hamburger the movie and Hot Dog the movie.
instead of leaving that genre in the past, dead and buried.
Dorian has questions, and he's come to the 80s sex romp, master here. What now?
Those three that you just came up with, you didn't just fire titles out of your ass. Those actually exist.
Those are actual movies. Dude, Joysticks is the bomb. Let me tell you. Joysticks is a cinema classic. I still quote Hamburger the movie. It's tasty, by God. And yes, Hot Dog the movie is not about hot dogs. It's a ski movie.
As much as if you the terrible animated movie Sausage Party leans hard into that style of filmmaking.
Oh, that's where those fuckers got it from.
Pretty much.
Okay. Now that the audience has a taste for my cinema enthusiasm, Robert, finish up.
Yeah, I'm not one who believes that the Exorcist story ever needed to continue. Not everything needs a sequel. There's something. One of the things that I hate to sound like this, so bear with me here, but the over corporatization of the arts has done is remove the impact and the payoff of finality, because if a story's done, we can't continue to monetize it.
Right.
This is a great loss in the story, whatever your medium of choice, in the art of storytelling. If you want to start blaming, I actually don't blame movies for this in the general sense. They got around to it, but this is why Western comics are the way they are. We can't ever move on from Bruce Wayne.
I say with novels too. Like you look at like the like the guy that wrote Jurassic Park and everything. Like, did we need another Jurassic Park book? No, we did not, but we got one. Did we need another Independence Day book? No, but we got one. And this goes on and on and on.
Independence Day book.
There was, if I remember correctly.
There was a novelization, but there wasn't.
There's something else that I'm thinking of along the same lines. Then
I got you. I get your point. Like, we've lost the ability to just let a story be itself, be finite, and be done. They're still talking about, hey, there hasn't been a Lord of the Rings movie in 13 years because you told the story. Congratulations.
Yes, your metaphor for World War I ended. The war and the story.
By the way, speaking of continuing things, sorry, just real quick, Robert, while you're on that, I have one of the people who is watching right now. They didn't comment on this because they didn't want to interrupt us, but I saw it. So I'm interrupting us because I'm on here. How dare you say Deadpool sucks?
Oh no! Shut up, dude! I don't know who you are. Thank you for watching our show. But God, don't do it, man. I gotta no, Robert, calm down.
Allow me to simply opine the following about Deadpool 1. Okay, this is all I'm going to say about it.
I told you, Dorian, Mark, I needed a handbook.
Dorian, you're on a fresh set of strikes, pal.
Hang on. Look, one thing. I'm not going to go on a rant. If you want to listen to our review of Deadpool, Mark and I reviewed it. I made my case there.
Bully Robert into submission.
Yes.
Listen to our Deadpool review.
That's a lot of me going, I don't like this, here's why, and Mark going, what's wrong with you? There's a lot of that.
That was the beginning of my girlfriend falling in love with you, by the way, was how could you do that to poor Robert? You beat the shit out of him on that show. And I'm like, oh my God. I was making valid points.
I didn't say you weren't. Look, that was also a point when I wasn't quite where I am now, where I will rhetorically stand up for myself when we disagree. As far as Deadpool goes, when all the funniest parts of your R-rated comedy are in the trailer that was released for general audiences, you have a problem.
Okay. Let me jump in here with the review of the movie we're talking about. I just want a couple of bullet points, and we're going right into the money, since we're almost at the point that I wanted to end this podcast. The horror genre, last I heard, was supposed to be scary. At a minimum, if your horror movie fails to provide adequate fright, you have failed the mission. And I tell you, I was on a date when I saw this movie, and we both had the same. Somebody else ooga booga at you from the darkness, then yeah, you're gonna jump a little bit. That's how haunted houses work. That doesn't mean your movie is good or that you provided adequate fright. And then everything leads up, your Battle of Manhattan moment, is the actual possession scene, which goes on for about 12 hours. It's about the length of an entire Martin Scorsese movie. And see Damn You Hollywood next week. And
coming to you from the time dilation that is close to the Flower Moon.
Yes. And we're sitting there and we're watching this, and we're both kind of occasionally looking at each other going, is this ever going to fucking end? And here's the thing: not only is it way too long, but the actual like possession scene and exorcism isn't scary. It's almost laughable at times, but you're laughing because you're just like, oh, this Muppet is yelling at these people. But like, there was nothing. I was like, listening back to our review of Old, and I kind of had the same moment because I listened to our review of that, and I remember saying to myself, something that's supposed to be horrifying made me laugh out loud. It's when the model trophy wife, her bones are brittle and she kind of falls apart and she looks like a swastika. And I remember laughing about that, and to this day, that still makes me laugh. But the scariest part of Old was the one girl eating the potato salad. I had a similar thing here where I'm just like, this is supposed to be frightening. There's supposed to be enough tension in this scene and enough visual stimuli to bother you that you should be frightened, and none of that works. It's all flat. The scene again.
Best scare is when he leans back and you see like what's like maybe Reagan when he's talking to his daughter in the bedroom. That's the best scare in my opinion.
Yeah, and then the other scene with what's her face, Leonard Bernstein, and and the possessed Katie.
And look, we've all wanted to stab Leonid Brezhnev at some point, right?
The whole bit where she confronts her for the first time and she's just like, I hear you, Reagan. Like,
in the name of every good being everywhere and my daughter, I cast you. Like, I wanted to stab you.
Yeah,
I'm rooting for the demon.
That scene ending with her being stabbed in the eye, and like I'm trying to not laugh. Like
trying not to cheer for the demon.
Yeah, I was like, that was some poor dialogue. Like this poor woman, who I'm sure is a wonderful actress, could not save that scene with her performance. That dialogue was terrible. And like, I'm giving the kid a lot of credit here. I'm not going to beat up on the kid. The kid's doing her level best being the demon in that scene. But it was all just like, oh my God, none of this works. And that is like a big problem I have with this movie is for the hour and a half, 2 hours that I watched this thing, I'm just like, none of what should be singing sings. It's all flat. And then the last thing is, and this is Dorian, I actually wanted to get your opinion on this because you're a director of movies, so you have an eye for the art, artists. A lot of what sometimes makes a movie work, we talked about this with the creator, we talked about this with Barbie, is your set design. If your set design sings, that can save a lot of your movie because at least you have something interesting to look at. This movie, the color paletting is washed out. The possession scenes, there's nothing really dynamic or fun to look at. And it's all kind of shot in one location. And if that one location doesn't sing in your home movie, it's just fucking boring to watch. Absolutely. And that was my experience with this.
I would agree. What the original Exorcist did with them renting this house, because Chris McNeil's character in the original is an actor. She's on a mute movie set, so they're having this apartment, this house for them during the shooting of the film. There is furniture in it. There is, cool stuff, obviously, but it's the walls are mainly blank because they haven't put anything up. That really adds to that sense of just unnerving.
Compare that to Evil Dead Rise. The setting in Evil Dead Rise was fantastic. My God, go back to our archives. Dorian was on that show too. We sang the praises of that movie up and down and sideways. It's a great contrast to this one because while Evil Dead Rise does almost everything right, not that it was without its flaws, we certainly brought those up, but we spent 2 hours just blowing that movie left and right.
Well,
and it's a great contrast to this one where this one seems to do everything wrong.
If you look at what we praised about that one versus a lot of what we've criticized here, the people who made Evil Dead Rise, they clearly sat down beforehand and really thought every bit of the technical side of that out.
Mm-hmm.
They thought about how they wanted it to sound. They thought about how they wanted it to look. They thought about the geography, the geometry, the architecture. They had all that really nailed down in ways that I feel like this one, your production notes would have been, house or street. Like it felt very bland, very generic in the setting.
The other problem, though, very, very quickly, though, is that if Evil Dead Rise had come off completely goofy and completely stupid, they were still bulletproof because of Evil Dead's reputation of being goofy and stupid. This, they had to be on point, and they weren't. And I'm sorry, just very, very quickly, since we're talking about production design and stuff like that, the full, monstrous, they're fully possessed, when they were both tied to the chairs, makeup, I was laughing my ass off. They didn't look scary. I'm going, oh my God, what are you? Again, 1973, I give him a pass on the makeup, even though it's fantastic. It is fantastic. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
this is a good 50 years later, folks.
It would be like if you look at the original Terminator where Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they clearly go to a claymation model where he's like stitching himself up and everything, and just like,
when he
oof.
removes his eye.
Yeah, like this looks terrible, but you forgive it because Terminator is awesome. It is a touchstone in the horror genre, the sci-fi genre, everything.
That makeup problem is it's still, when you watch it, like,
and if you go to if there's a scene like that in Terminator Dark Feminism where he suddenly turns into Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and you're like, what the fuck is this? A total consistency in your visual medium, that's a problem. This is the last thing I'm going to say, and I just want to move on. Other than all the credit in the world, so I say something nice because people are like, you ever going to say something nice about this movie? Yes, the two girls are phenomenal. They look great in the makeup. They give their level best performances. They're probably the whole stars of this thing because there ain't much else, but it's not enough to get this thing over the finish line. I talk about there are talkie movies and then there are visual movies, and you can do a talkie movie that looks bland, but you're so engaged, like Oppenheimer. You can be engaged in the narrative, in the dialogue, that it carries you through, and that's enough. Or you have an Evil Dead Rise, which is a highly visual, technical movie where the dialogue, as we talked about back then, was goofy as all get out, but it didn't matter because everything looks awesome and you're there for the visual ride. And this movie managed to miss both balls being thrown at it. It looks bad and it sounds bad, and you're like, what the hell? And with that said, that is our review of the craft of The Exorcist Believer. So with that said, Robert, are you ready? Here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
I love our audience. I love the fact that we bring people like Zach and Dorian on, and they bring their friends, and we grow our audience. But let me tell you how it fucking throws me off that I now have to explain things to people and what we're doing, because I miss the old jazz days, Robert, of me and you just naked doing this show, and we had to tell shit to nobody because nobody was listening. But now I got to be like, all right, we have to talk about finances now. It's called the money. That's what we're doing here.
Because the Damn You Hollywood experience is not just a review of the film. It's mostly that, but we'd be remiss if we don't talk about the actual finance and some of the business side of this, because it's an important element of filmmaking that gets largely ignored.
Right, or the news that it generates.
And then we discovered how bad most critics are at their job, so we have to point the lens at them on occasion, because these are these are the pillars of not filmmaking necessarily, but the pillars of the film industry and popular culture. You have the product, you have the finances, and you have the reaction. And we like to talk about all three of them.
Yep. So this, folks, for those that have never watched before or watched for the first time, this is the money segment. We talk about the budget. We talk about whether or not it made any money. And then we do projections. We look at the worldwide gross. This is sort of our like quasi news segment. So here we go. Now that I turned our little Ramones type punk rock show into this big orchestral thing, on a budget of $30 million, because we can't have nice things in reverse, this thing has made $85.2 million. It is already profitable. God hates us all. You were going to say something or no? Robert?
I tend to...
For the first time in the show's fucking history, you weren't going to say anything?
Considering the tenor of this film in particular, I tend to think it's more we hate God than God hates us.
Fair. Okay. All right. Hey, the weekend that was... In a moment that when I saw it, it made me laugh. Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, was the #1 movie of the weekend. God bless you, Taylor Swift. The one thing unifying this country, Taylor Swift.
I do not care for her.
No shit. Or the Beastie Boys, or Culture, or anything.
Look, Sabotage is a nice song, but I don't know why they had to release it so many times.
I'm not explaining that gimmick to people. You suck. The Exorcist fell from 1 to 2. Paw Patrol, or if you like Saw Patrol, fell from 2 to 3. Saw fell from 3 to 4. The Creator, 4 to 5. The Blind, 5 to 6. All Haunting in Venice, 6 to 7. The Nun, currently PVOD, fell from 7 to 8. The Equalizer stayed in its spot at number 9. And Dumb Money fell 2 spots to number 10. Rounding out the top 20 are Hocus Pocus, Barbie, The Expendables, Oppenheimer, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, Blue Beetle, Mutant Mayhem, independent thing, and it went into a wide release. And then Gran Turismo rounds out the top 20. Also debuting this weekend were Anatomy of a Fall at 22, The Mission at 29, The Road Dance at 41, Divinity at 42, and that was the weekend that was worldwide. I'm sure we have had no movement whatsoever.
Not a single, not an iota.
Nope. So whipping through this real quick, I do not want to stop every other second. Barbie is still the number one movie in the world at $1,439,000,000, followed by the Super Mario Brothers movie.
When we finally close the door on this one, Barbie will still be the number one movie of 2023. God help us all.
Firmly in its Oppenheimer, one of the most successful rated R movies of all. Tech 704, Spider-Man 690, The Little Mermaid 569, Mission Impossible.
Uh-oh.
Might not catch up this time.
He's
It does.
just frozen in angry face right now.
I apologize for the technical difficulties on Mark's end. That appears to be some kind of internet connection issue. Imagine he might be cutting out in just a second. Then he won't react. That's usually how that goes.
So hi, audience. How are you? You having a good day? We hope you are.
We certainly do. So, very brief. Yeah, there he goes. He should be back in a second or two.
Well, hi, Robert. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I've been worse. Yeah, the box office for this year, we've talked about it before. Two movies that made enough money that they should have been profitable, but ultimately weren't. That I still feel the need to kind of bring up on occasion. So let's talk about Fast X Part 1, because we are Final Fantasy naming convention at this point.
Yes.
You made $700 million and weren't profitable. And that's criminal. That's just criminal. If you generate that much money, you should not lose money on the endeavor.
No.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
I think we're back.
You are back as far as
for Robert and Dorian to come back.
Oh, we're here. We haven't left. We've been talking to the audience.
Sorry, folks. We had a bit of a freeze there. Not sure if this is getting through or not.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, now I can hear you. Hey, we're back.
Okay.
I think.
As Ronnie has brought up on screen, this is what happens when we review Exorcist movies. Technical difficulties rear their heads.
Yep, someone upstairs is angry. All right, I don't know where we lost there, but yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp still hanging on at the number 10 spot.
Little Mermaid losing money, Ant-Man losing money, Mission Impossible losing money, Fast X losing money. This is a big loser year for most studios.
Yeah.
By most studios, I mean Disney.
All right. With that being said, so this is it for this one. It had its opening weekend. We're getting to it a week later, just because there was a weirdness with the schedule. But this week coming up is the Martin Scorsese 3.5-hour epic, Killers of the Flower Moon. That'll probably win its weekend. And then Five Nights at Freddy. I just want to talk about Five Nights at Freddy real quick. So I had to rearrange some stuff in my schedule, figure out, part of it was Francis Ngannou is fighting Tyson Fury on October 28th, and I wanted to be able to watch the whole thing. And I think the pay-per-view actually starts at 12, or this prelims at 12, and the main card starts at 2. And either way, it was like, well, all right.
Well, they're in Riyadh, right? So they're doing it prime time in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Or
so
Western
the point
Asia,
being,
if you prefer.
I was going to take my kids to go see Five Nights at Freddy on Saturday, and I can't because of the pay-per-view. I want to make sure I watch the whole thing. So I went to go look at the Thursday previews because it's the only other night that I had available to take them before we ran into the review. And I actually had to flip around to different times in theaters because most of them were sold out. Like I said earlier this year, and I've made this point a few times, it being PG-13 and it being a popular game with the children, believe it or not, I think that Freddy, despite it being day and date on Peacock, is actually going to do really, really well. I mean, I don't think it's going to do like Avengers money, but I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with how much money it makes.
And when it does, we'll only have to wait another 5 years for the Among Us movie. That's a very niche reference.
Universal has a really fantastic, and I think it's obviously still going to be up for the rest of the this month. Actually, just got back from a very special behind the scenes VIP tour of the backlots of Universal Studios. They have a fantastic Last of Us themed haunted house. If you have the money to go see it, they have several other haunted houses, which are Universal Monsters Unleashed and also Chucky.
You mind if I ask which Universal? Is that Orlando or was that?
It's Orlando. Yeah.
I'm actually
taking my daughter. I'm taking my daughter this Thursday to Halloween Horror Nights, so I'll be checking out some of those houses.
I only bring that up because I actually know one of the haunted house designers who works at Universal in California.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Good friend. Good friend of my family, Tom. He designs haunted houses for them now, and he's a great guy.
So whatever money this Exorcist movie was going to make, it's made it. And I'm sure it's going to be racing to PVOD shortly. And so we have Killers of the Flower Moon, then Five Nights at Freddy. And then we're taking a week off. I'm sure there's something on the calendar, but it's whatever. And then we're back with the Marvels. Yeah, so the next big release will be the Marvels. We have a lot of one and done. And I know, we talked about this last week. There's just a minimal repeating. Between now and Aquaman, I don't think any single movie repeats its number one spot. I think it's all one and done.
It's unlikely. It's unlikely. Dude, I can't wait for Marvels to crash and burn. Like
I know. This has become your new thing.
Well, it is, but
this is the new Cocaine Bear, but like the opposite. This is like the negative Cocaine Bear.
Look, man, we rooted hard for Cocaine Bear. We really did, and that blew up in our face. So let me root on a more sure thing here. Just let me feel good about this one. The fact that thing is that thing is tracking and projecting lower than the Eternals is a real bad sign.
Oh, is it really? Yikes.
I linked that the other day in the chat. Like, hey, this is tracking very poorly.
I'm busy. All right. There's really not a whole lot else to talk about with the money here. So without belaboring the point, here we go with the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Well, folks, sometimes we're way more negative than the rest of the world, and sometimes we nail them dead to rights. Oi. Look at those scores.
Very, very rarely we're more positive than the rest of the world. It does happen.
We have a 22% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics, and we have a 59% audience score. When we go to top critics, it drops even further to 15%. Yeah. And then the all audience score, 47. So universally panned, The Exorcist believer. Well done, people. Boy, it's a good. Hey, remember the good old days where something would have to hit and be popular with people before it was granted a sequel. Meanwhile, in the year of our Lord 2023, things are getting sequels, and they're just hoping they make money. It's an odd way to do business.
The decision to move the movie business model to something more in line with TV in terms of the schedule that they keep and release scheduling was a horrible decision, and whoever made it should be shot.
Yeah, I hope
not shot dead, like in the leg.
Right in the kneecap. All right.
No, just through the calf. That'll be nice.
The critical consensus: The Exorcist believer earns points for trying to take the franchise back to its terrifying roots, bloody roots. But a lack of new ideas and scares make this an inauspicious start to a planned new trilogy.
That is a kind way to say that. You did good, AI. You were kind.
And the audience says, if you can resist the urge to compare to the classic film that started the franchise, Exorcist Believer is a halfway decent possession thriller. Yeah,
No,
I
it's
can't
not.
compare it to the original. I've never seen it, and I don't believe that to be true.
Yeah. Look, Mark is not proof positive of this, but he's a pretty serious data point in it.
All right. Let's see if we can at least find friends or stuff that makes me laugh. Or, hey, here's someone who thought it was fresh, maybe. Mark Mazoros of the News Herald, Willoughby, Ohio, offers nothing new to the formula, and if you were worried Believer wouldn't play the hits during the exorcism, fear not, it's all there, and fans of the original will know what we are referring to. Alrighty. Let's see here. Mary Beth McAndrews of Dread Central. David Gordon Green's The Exorcist Believer fundamentally misunderstands its source material and has nothing of any real substance to say. Yeah, that's
accurate.
what we said.
Man, when you've lost, the horror audience is much more forgiving than most audiences. When you've lost even them, you have failed the assignment.
Dulce Pierce of The Sun UK. However, overall, this is a surprisingly class act with enough devil in the detail to thoroughly enjoy. It's just why?
It's not. It's really not. How can you call this
not
a class
do the
act?
fucking puns? Jesus Christ! The devil's in the details. Do you get it? Do you get it?
They did the same thing with Last Voyage of Demeter. This is a story you can really sink your teeth into.
Do you? Sorry, I went the other way.
It didn't.
Do you get it? Do you get it?
Yes.
Do you get it? Oh my god. I wanted you to yell, "Do you get it, Dorian?" To put you on the full screen.
That's fair. I started the Deadpool thing. There's your revenge.
Let's see here. No, I'm gonna read this one just because that name makes me laugh. Diego Peralta of Geeks of Color. Ugh. Odom Jr. shines in his performance as a man who will stop at nothing to keep his daughter safe in a sequel to the slowly build up towards an explosive conclusion. Okay, I'm convinced ChatGPT wrote that.
He definitely had some AI help.
Yeah.
He threw a prompt in there and didn't edit it properly. Dude, that character would have actually been better if he was relentlessly driven. Instead, he just kind of exists. Like
He does have one driven moment, and it is a really great moment in the movie, and it's probably one of my favorite. But it's when they go outside, or he goes outside for a moment, and he sees the priest praying in his car, and he walks up the window and knocks on the window and goes, "Hey, fight's in there."
Yeah.
Just walks away. That's one of the few moments of the movie that really stuck with me that I will remember when this movie's brought up.
I really needed more of that iteration of this character throughout the course of that of this story, and instead he's just kind of bland for the vast majority of it. It's a real missed opportunity.
I'm Batman. I'm gone now.
Fred Topol of United Press International. Exorcist Believer is never boring. Bullshit.
All evidence to the contrary, sir.
By the time were you getting a blowjob during the movie? I don't know how you come to that conclusion. But by the time it's over, it feels a bit hollow. That still puts it behind The Exorcist 3 and the TV series, but at least the franchise is back on the right path. Ugh.
Hang on.
You cashed the check yet, sir?
In moderate fairness to the point he's raising, I've given a few other movies props recently for maybe not being good, but if you're long-suffering and part of the franchise, you wind up going, it's nice that it didn't suck that much.
Yeah, that was your Hellraiser fucking
among others.
review.
That it was there among others. This one doesn't actually get that pass because there's at least 3 entries into the general mythos that are better than this, at least.
Our friend Kevin Carr, fat guy at the movies. It tries some interesting things, but murky cinematography and unfocused plot fails to live up to the better films in the series. Well, Kevin, you're not wrong.
I don't know what interesting things this even tried. Oh, there's 2 of them that are possessed instead of 1 person.
Yeah, the interesting thing was Black Girl. Like, oh, look, we did a thing. Like, Louis Bond of Diario Las Americas. Leaving aside its detractors, and despite how far it is from the source, The Exorcist Believer continues to maintain the core that animated its predecessor, the archetypal struggle between good and evil.
Doesn't. This is actually one of my biggest gripes with this movie. It actually doesn't, because no one wants to take a stand on absolute good and absolute evil. Everyone wants to engage in moral relativism.
Yep.
There's moments where it starts to, and then it looks like it's like in the stocks, ready to take the run, and then it goes, eh.
Maybe tomorrow.
Evil's kind of a nebulous concept, and we don't like saying evil. And what is really good?
What
Everything can be good.
What a millennial movie! Like, we're ready to take a stance on good and evil. Not today.
You are not. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's more millennial or like a Gen Z take on that culturally, but you are not wrong to point that out.
The last one I'm going to review here, and this is somewhat why we do this. Nate Adams of The Only Critic. Lord, forgive Hollywood, for they have sinned.
That has been an accurate sentiment for many decades. You didn't need to put that pun in this movie.
You know, criticism is an art form, and these people are very paint by numbers. Oy vey.
They are profoundly uninteresting, too.
Say the least. All right, folks, though, that is our full and complete vascular review of The Exorcist Believer. I want to thank Dorian Price for coming on here. Always a pleasure, Dorian.
Thank you.
Terrific.
It's always good to be here. Sorry, I thought you were going to keep talking, so I was like, I'll just make hand motions.
No, occasionally I pause to let other people talk, contrary to popular opinion.
And a lot of evidence.
Next week on Family Matters.
This Thursday, myself and Alexis Hano will be reviewing season 3 of Only Moitas in the Building. Next week, myself and Robert, where are you? Robert will be reviewing Killers of the Flower Moon, and myself and David Wright will be doing reviewing season 2 of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds.
Ooh, what if you want to claim that season 1 had some redeeming value?
And then Thursday night, Alexis is going to be doing a review with Robert, among other people, for The Fall of House of Usher, the Netflix show.
Start on that, actually.
This weekend,
I'll be there too for that one.
Yep.
Cool. This weekend, we've got some canned hams for you. We've got our Godzilla 1998 alternative commentary that has my kids on it, as well as
you know what?
Jesse and Alexis.
That's entirely appropriate. That is a movie for 8-year-olds.
You're not wrong. And then Metal Hammer of Doom Sundays, we've got High on Fire, Luminiferous from 2015. So that's what I got going on over here. Dorian Price of Freaky Pictures. Show us where you pissed from.
Obviously, on Instagram and Facebook, you can find us at Freaky Pictures. If it needs to be shot, excuse me, I need to rephrase that.
If you need to be shot, I'll shoot it.
If it needs to be shot, we are there.
I know a guy.
Represent. If it needs to be filmed, taken pictures of, we're actually in the midst of doing a bunch of music and promo videos for a lot of bands around here in Kansas City, getting a lot of people off the ground. If you're just starting out, if you need electronic press kit, again, promo shoots, again, hit us up on, like I said, Freaky Pictures, as you can see it spelled there, on Instagram or Facebook. We're happy to help you. Always excited to do it. Myself and the crew I have always love what we do, and it's always fun to have new challenges. The only thing I'll also add, which is for this network, and I know we're still trying to schedule it, but there is a segment on the show called "In Defense of." If I'm not
okay, slow down. One, it's called On Trial.
On Trial
is the name of the show.
But I'm trying to convince Mr. Radulich to let me do an on trial of Sleepy Hollow, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, because I absolutely love that movie. And I'm more than willing to have Robert or Pat or whoever else they want to throw at me to put that on trial and defend it. So hopefully that can get on the schedule for this year, still in the spooky season. But if not, keep your eyes open, because I know Mr. Radulich and I have been wanting to do that. But if it doesn't happen, then ignore everything I just said.
There's a lot of us that consider Tim Burton one of cinema's greatest monsters, right up there with George Lucas. So I imagine we can find someone to prosecute it.
Mark froze again.
Indeed he did. On the plus side, I can do my plugs. So I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. I do MLW stuff when they have a Thursday show that I'm able to review, because I can't always do it live, and when they do other stuff, there's another guy who does it, but at the moment it's still me. If they're going back on TV, it'll be Jeremy again until that season ends, then it's me again for their internet stuff. That's kind of the cycle at this point with them. But when I have it, I do it. They had a pay-per-view event this last weekend, so we should be back for Fusion this week. Anyway, I cover that. I cover WWE SmackDown on Fridays. That's I can't say it's a lot of fun, but things seem to be moving in a good direction at the moment. So tune in for that. I also cover again MMA events. So this coming Saturday is UFC 294. The prelims have a start time of 10 a.m. Eastern time. That's going to be 8 in the morning for me. Got to wake up earlier than I want to cover the preliminary action on a pay-per-view card.
Go with God.
Hell, they're in Abu Dhabi and they're doing it live. They're doing like prime time there, so that's how it goes.
It is, yeah.
So I'll be covering that. It's a pretty good card. If you want my full preview, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. I actually recorded this one technically this morning. I had a family event on Sunday evening when I normally record that went late, so I recorded that thing from was it 11 to 1, I think, my time, give or take.
Why are you asking me?
I don't know. It was. I'm trying to remember. It was something like that.
I know. Just how often you get to quote that Blazing Saddles line?
That's true. That's very true. And if Mark were here, he would jump in with a quote that involved the N-word at this point.
Hey, we're talking about Evil Dead. It's like that last word. It starts with an N.
So we are talking. So again, I give a full preview of that card, which shifted around a lot over the last couple of days, with both the main and half of each of the main and co-main falling out and getting replaced, and whether or not those fights are better now, who knows? I leave that to you, but I talk about it. That again, if you like mixed martial arts, that show will keep you covered. It talks about the news, the UFC, Bellator on occasion, whatever happens to come up. I occasionally talk boxing. So again, have that if you're so interested. Mark brought up a little bit of our schedule, but yeah, next week, Killers of the Flower Moon, then Thursday for TV Party That Followed the House of Usher, which is on Netflix. Looking to start digging into that in the next couple of days. So very much looking forward to any of all of that.
I got through the first episode, so sorry. I'm just stalling till he gets back.
Because I can't actually stop the show.
I realize I'm like, I can't either, so I'm like, stall, stretch it.
We do kind of need Mark here to hit the end show button.
But yeah, since I've been a guest on here enough, and I just kind of want to bounce off what you said, Robert. For those of you who enjoy this, please check out the rest of the stuff, because I personally am not a huge MMA fan, but I have watched several of the reviews, and they are really enjoyable. There is a comedic factor to it, like everything else this channel does. So they don't pay me to say this. They don't pay me to do anything. I come on here for fun.
None of us get paid.
Right? It's like, you're getting paid? The fuck? You see the whole technical difficulties thing pop up because Mark's like, shit, shut up, Dorian. But no, please, if you're enjoying this, check out the other shows, and because they are a lot of fun. You have a lot of great people that come on here just because they love the stuff they do, and they deserve more views. And again, I come on here because it's fun, and every time a horror movie pops up, I'm usually here. But I've watched their other stuff, and it's a lot. It is really great. So check it out. There's the plug.
For those of you wanting an update, apparently Mark's Wi-Fi went down, so we are kind of just vamping until he gets back to hit the end show button, because I don't actually. I really need to talk with him briefly and get the information for logging in so that I could potentially do that. But I don't at the moment, so.
Well, in that case, I got some for you, Robert. And this is just as a filmmaker, but I want an alternate opinion on it. When I got done watching Exorcist Believer, I was making my notes when I got back to the hotel, because I did get to actually see it at Universal Studios, which was a lot of fun. It was. But I got to a point where I realized, especially now that this is Green's second outing with a very popular horror franchise, that, and I don't say this as an insult, what these are very expensive fan films.
Yeah.
I don't remember what director said it, but said that every generation has the right to tell their version or their take on a story that inspired them when they were younger. And I feel like as much crap as we've given Mr. Green, in a way, that's what he's doing. He wanted to tell his version of Halloween, and he did. He loved The Exorcist. I mean, Exorcist is my favorite horror movie. I mean, it's like tied neck and neck with Nightmare on Elm Street. But I see these as, again, very expensive fan films of people just getting to, creators getting to give their take on something that they very much loved or scared the crap out of them, or both when they were a kid. So what do you think of that?
I appreciate the sentiment, and I think there's some truth to that. Part of my problem with it in this instance is I'm always leery about when you talk about fan films, because I feel like the batting average is low. It's very easy to be a fan of something and to not fully understand it. And
Agreed.
that's not a knock. I am fans of plenty of things that if you asked me to try and recreate, I could not in any way. But
it'd still be fun to try.
yeah, I just, I don't have a studio that's willing to throw $40 million at me to try and do it. And again, his take on Halloween, I think, worked better than his take on The Exorcist, because again, his sensibilities lend themselves more to what he was able to pull off with the slasher genre than the really deft, really astute hand that you need for something like The Exorcist. If we're going to try and reboot Friday the 13th in the near future, I think he might be a decent choice for that. Wouldn't be my first, but he might be a decent one. You've just got to keep him away from the stuff that needs a really cerebral approach. And that's why I say keep him. If you're going to, somebody's going to try and reboot Nightmare on Elm Street, it's overdue. And I think he would be a terrible choice for that. Like, you need to have something to say in those movies, and you need, again, you need one, a really good casting for Freddy, and then two, you need to have the right eye and the right mind for how to make those work. It was one of the great tragedies of the last attempt at remaking Nightmare on Elm Street that you actually had a great casting choice, maybe the best casting choice you could have made.
Oh yeah, for Freddy, you mean, right?
Yeah. Not Numi Rapic, who was just there for a paycheck. No, not Numi Rapic, the other one. Because they played the same character.
Yeah, Rooney Mara?
Was Rooney Mara? Yeah, Rooney Mara, because Numi Rapic is the original one.
Sorry about that. My internet just took a crap.
Yeah, you're okay. It happens. But just kind of to finish my point there, you had great casting for Freddy and one or two decent ideas. I actually love the idea of micronaps after that much insomnia, and that being how Freddy kind of gets to them. And the best scenes in that movie are the original ones. When they try to remake the original, it falls flat and fails miserably.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
so real quick. So yes, we're doing the on trial for Sleepy Hollow on November 19th.
And Mark will be prosecuting one of cinema's greatest monsters. That is Tim Burton.
All right, are we ready to wrap?
We are. Yeah, we were just vamping till you got back.
Sweet. All right, folks, thank you for joining us. Sorry about the technical difficulty there at the end. Yeah, it's weird. It happens every once in a while where someone's internet on this show takes a giant dump, but
it does.
Appreciate Dorian for coming on. Thank you for watching Damn You Hollywood. I'm Mark. That's Robert. Be well, be safe, and behave.